Come and take a class at the Alter Academy.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another great episode of Alter Academy, where we have another special guest, an LCQ winner, European Continentals top 16 player, and co-host of the Artacast. Welcome, LD, everybody. LD, how are you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Big fan of the series and love what you're doing with the content. So yeah, massively honored to be asked to come and be a part of it, and looking forward to talking through some alters.
Yeah, I'm excited. You actually won a set champs, I believe, with this list, or a list very close to it. And so we also saw an Emerald Steel make the top cut at Bologna, I believe top 8. Correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been top 4. I think it was top 8, though. But so this deck, it has some legs, guys. And so if you want to do something other than like the big 4 or big 5 if you count dogs, this is a really, really cool way to kind of finish off this fabled meta if you want to just play something different. So LD, without further ado, can you go ahead and just tell me about this list and the lines?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start maybe with a small bit on the origin of the deck. Basically, this was originally born from it was originally born from the desire. So I love playing tempo decks. Green purple tempo has historically been where I'm most comfortable and confident. I love purple decks in general, but I'm not a massive Blurple fan. I will play purple steel if I must, but generally I really want to be playing something that curves out nicely, starts to do something slightly disruptive in the mid game, and then just quests ahead of the opponent while staying marginally ahead on board and roughly at card parity. So just playing a nice, fair tempo game. And green steel was where I landed with that this set. Obviously, Blurple, Purple Steel, very, very powerful decks that I could have played, but I wanted to kind of push and try to do something slightly different. I think that this is a very functional deck. It actually plays a lot better, and once you've got a few reps, plays a lot better than it might appear on the surface, and is, yeah, certainly a contender for me for set champs, that sort of thing. It's done very well for me, but the main philosophy is trying to play a classic tempo style play in this slightly weird fabled metagame that we have, and transporting into this. So generally on the play, this will come up when we look at some alters, but generally on the play, it's a fast Clarabelle curve out. You have your full 8 shift Clarabelle targets. But then on the draw, you have sort of all of the good reactive steel stuff to be doing in the early game through Hook, Calhoun. You have your like really nice sort of reactive lines with strength and that sort of thing, and the disruption package as well between Pete and Ursula, which is great for any kind of song and action heavy decks. You can really throw them off, and it's very, very good at being the deck that resolves the first strength, which is quite important in a lot of these steel mirrors. You want to be the first one. You want to be the first one playing your strength or a raging fire. This has a lot of tools to do that, and in recent iterations as well, building in Emerald Chromicon to kind of unite some of the philosophy of this green steel version with the more aggressive version that topped in Bologna. I'm a big Chromicon fan. You could probably do a half-hour video talking about Chromicon, but the short answer on that card is the short answer on Chromicon is you put it into play and everything descends into chaos, because nobody really knows how to play optimally with one in play, which is true for both sides of the board. But it generally is chaos that goes in your way, because you can do things like return docks and start a draw engine that way. So,
even returning go-go's.
Plenty of other little... Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why. So I always said, if there was any single card in the game that I would say is like the most me card, it's Mother Knows Best. It's the closest thing I've got to a full pet card, and using Max Goof, the 3-cost one in here, like obviously the main thing you want to do with Max Goof is buy back strengths. It's pretty much the best removal card in the format. But you can start turning Mother Knows Best into a draw engine. So you late game, top a 3-cost Max Goof, bring back a Mother Knows Best, sing it with something on your own dock to bounce back your dock as the last card in hand, draw 2 more cards. You get these little engines going with it, and there's lots of nice little synergies like that in the deck that really help it do something slightly different to the rest of the metagame.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the big surprise too with the little Max Goof, is just those little engines in unison with Doc. I think you said it best there. And you can get a lot of surprise factors where normally when someone plays a Doc, it's kind of a useless card at that point. But here you kind of have to be cognizant of bouncing back with these kind of tricky and swifty play lines you can come up with.
Yep, absolutely.
And then, of course, you play my least favorite card as an Amber Steel player in Lewis.
Yeah, yeah. So Lewis is one of it has a really interesting history throughout the Fabled metagame, which is during the early stages of the set, we sort of theorized that Lewis being a 4/3 that was going to on turn 3 that was going to give something reckless. It was really good at slowing down aggressive decks, and it was supposed to be your perfect anti-aggro tool. And we kind of looked at it to fill some of that gap left by cards like Fox, which were really, really important in aggro matchups. It didn't come to pass because actually Lewis's stat line lined up really poorly against Captain Hooks, Calhoun's. You just play one, they trade up with it, and it turned out to be really bad. But as the Amber Steel decks became optimized, many of them shaved Hooks, shaved Calhoun's. They got rid of them to make more room for a much more explosive super aggro draw. And the same is true for the Dogs decks as well, which are highly optimized to be able to run very fast in a vacuum. And actually, through doing that and through playing through cutting those things to become more aggressive, it created a huge window for Lewis to come back. And that was another one of the reasons why I landed on this deck at the time I did. Was I kind of thought, I'm not sure these decks can beat a Lewis on turn 3 anymore.
I think the only out they have is the tramp that boosts based on the characters, and so if they don't have that, this Lewis is eating like maybe 2 to 3 cards.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, so good for that. And it's another when you're in these, when you start getting towards that later game against some of these aggro matchups, you can just look to bounce your own Lewis with Chromicon again to keep giving things reckless. And yeah, another one of these things that serves a great purpose on curve, but also forms a part of this big late game bouncy toolbox that, yeah, as I say, as we'll go through it, there are so many weird and wonderful little lines with it to enjoy. I'm sure some of them will come up through the altars.
Yeah, and speaking of altars, let's go ahead and get into that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, as we always do, we will start blind on the play.
Sure. Okay.
Looks like we're just playing a steel deck here.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is so much of the time what you want to be doing. So I'm pretty much always looking for your standard steel curve out as any of these. Same sort of thing if people watched your episode with Tiago talking about purple steel. He spoke about the importance of just curving one, making sure that you have set up a board where you can strength for 4 on turn 4. This is a hand that that does that pretty reliably. The questionable card in this mulligan is Doc, really. There's altar, not mulligan. In these altars, Doc is it's a very tricky card. In a vacuum, it's exceptional. You always want some way of drawing, so there's a big case to be made for just holding on to the Doc. When you hold on to one, it almost immediately summons the second one to the top of your deck. And,
it sure does.
Which is a pretty miserable experience. So a lot of the time I'll send them back, but with a hand that's as smooth as this, where I know that I'm playing my Calhoun on turn 2, so I don't need to worry too much about getting gummed up on Inkables. There's a case where I just keep this as a 7, because the curve out is so smooth, and I have my Doc to redraw. I think on balance of odds, with unknown opponent, I think this is a keep for me. I think I just set my cards down and don't move on. The only thing I consider sending back is the Doc, but what am I really hoping to draw instead of it? I don't really know. I know that if I'm going first against an unknown opponent, I'm going to curve out and run out of gas. Having that Doc for sure is great. If I draw a second one, it's not the end of the world, because I can just play both of them on turn 4. I've got my perfect curve out to freeze the board into something that's going to draw me some cards. Yeah, I think this is it's a lock. I would keep this. Yeah. It looks perfectly smooth to me.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out something that I think a lot of newer players don't consider, and it's when they're altering cards, there might not be a card that like you necessarily want to keep, but what is going to make the hand better? And so what you're saying here is there's nothing that's going to make this hand better. And so having this dock and making sure we have a dock and making sure we're not going to alter into multiple docks is
Yep.
huge here. And so it's very likely that we could just dump this out really quick, sing a strength, play that dock, and get full value before we draw our second dock. And so I think very,
Absolutely.
very well said. And that's something newer players just don't consider is the risk of just drawing any card versus what's going to make our hand better. And so I think you successfully pointed out that the risk of just drawing something that'll make our hand worse is higher than anything we could get. And it's just better to keep it all. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a skill that's developed in time as well. It really did take me a long time. Um, Even in Lorcana, it took me a super long time to get used to that that mindset. You
yeah.
always the way the altering system works in this game kind of leads you towards thinking, right, what am I doing here to optimize? And actually, it comes a certain point where your first few turns of the game are so clear with a hand that anything you're looking to optimize beyond that point, you're
It's
probably
tough.
introducing more risk. Yeah. How much better do you want this to be? You're introducing a fair amount more risk. So yeah, you can make a case for putting the dock back here, but I think I'm perfectly happy just to hold it. If I happen to draw into the second one in the first few draws, it's unlucky, and
Yeah.
but it's also not the end of the game because you'll just play them both out on the same turn and draw two. So
Perfect. All right. Now let's move into blind on the draw after taking
yes,
our altar, of course, of 0.
yeah,
So, oh, and here we are doing the old switcheroo and getting all of the emerald cards
yeah,
now. So, and I do
yes.
see one
Now,
of my favorite cards on the draw in that
hmm
Ursula.
yes, it's a Ursula can be very, very good on the play and on the draw. There is something slightly tricky though. I
Hmm.
actually think this deck is really interesting to talk about the altars with because you you are playing this tempo style game, which means you need to have some element of board control from the early turns. So the deck plays one drop Clarabelles. It also plays Captain Hooks in the one drop slot. Um, and then in the two drop slot, you have Calhoun's, Ursula's, and some Go Go's and things. If you curve Clarabelle into Ursula, those two things together make for a very weak board. You're not really threatening to do anything. You can't
Right.
contest any kind of aggressive opening. So I always want either a Calhoun or a hook. I'm
Yeah.
okay playing Ursula on turn two as long as I hooked on turn one. And I'm okay playing a Clarabelle on one as long as I can play a Calhoun on turn two, if that makes sense. So that
Hmm.
I'm doing these things that advance my game plan, whether it's presenting a shift target or whether it's disrupting their hand with Ursula a little bit, doing that alongside making sure that I'm got a pretty sizable board presence so that my opponent doesn't just run away with the game while I durdle around with
Yeah.
Clarabelles and bounce spells. Um, yeah, this hand, the ironic thing is the hand we just looked at on the play, very much the sort of thing we really want to see on the draw because it's
Yeah.
fantastically reactive. It's going to shut down anything our opponent runs away with. So here we have a much a greater thing to consider in front of us. I'm certainly not too keen on these bouncy uninkables. So the Chromicon is an easy send back. It's much worse on the draw than it is
Hmm.
on the play. In general, it's much harder because you start off on the back foot. It's much harder to get ahead to a point when you're happy committing what is usually a full turn to developing a Chromicon. Um, so that's an easy send away, and so's the Mother Knows Best. It can be quite bricky um, at times, and you really just want to draw it with something active in play. It took me a little while to come around to that as well, but I think the yeah, just the idea that you generally send it back in the openers unless you really have deep knowledge of the matchup. The
Oh, yeah.
Clarabelles as well, also our least favorite three drop to see on the draw because
Yeah.
generally our opponent has fewer cards in hand. So I think I mean, it's pretty bad if we don't draw a three, but also Clarabelle is such a bad three, and the deck is full of pretty good threes. I'm happy. Really, the big choice here is do we hold one to try and avoid disaster completely, or do we send them both back to look for something better? So the improvise isn't doing much, so we're happy sending that back. So it's really a question of is it three? Sorry, is it four or is it five? Because as soon as my opponent shows me what they are on turn one, I get to make a heads-up decision about whether to develop Calhoun or Ursula. In the blind, I'm happy to hold both of them until that reveals itself. I think I'm sending 4 here. It's a you have this inkable 3-drop that can just be ink. Hopefully within our 4 we find a better 3 that looks better on the draw. Yeah, I'm comfortable with this. It's not a deck that lives and dies by its ability to play a 1-drop. You can certainly be in the game without doing something on turn 1. So that's probably a big thing in people's minds is, right, do you go send 5 and make sure you try to find this 1-drop? 4 feels like enough for me. If we find a 1, we're super happy. If we don't, it's not a complete disaster.
Yeah, and quick question before we alter. If we knew this was Blurple on the draw, would we be keeping the Chromacon? And this is from my understanding.
It's okay. Yes. So in the blind, Chromacon can be quite bad on the draw. It's more often something you can think about keeping if you have a nice aggressive or a nice sort of smooth curve out on the play. If it's one of the matchups that it excels in, like Blurple, for example, I would very much consider keeping it just because we're only running 2, so you're unlikely to see the second, and they struggle to deal with it so much. It's a much bigger case for keeping it, yeah. But in the blind, I have to send it back because we don't have a lot of the tools that we're looking for here. It's unlikely. I can't build the kind of board with this hand that Chromacon excels in.
Right.
So it has to go because I can't rely on the pieces forming around it.
All right. So thank you for that. Yeah, because I'm a little, as you said, unknowledgeable at Emerald Chromacon and how to play around it. So I appreciate that insight. But let's go into.
It's true for everyone.
Let's go into altering these 4 cards and see what we get.
Okay, so it's not a complete disaster, but we haven't really found a huge amount of what we're interested in. What we do have that's really nice, though, is the ability to... So we'll run out, assuming we don't draw a better 3-drop, we get to develop a Clarabelle on turn 3. And we're almost certainly not drawing with it, so yeah, again, it's a pretty weak hand that we're not too happy with. But we are at least threatening the shift Clarabelle. We have a line into that in the game. We can start doing things like you play your Clarabelle on turn 3. On turn 4, you could, if they're kind of one of these slower, rampier decks, you can immediately Mother Knows Best back their big thing if they play like a Scrooge or something large, and then buy it back on your turn 4 with Max. And then try to set up a shift Clarabelle bounce turn on turn 5, which is a huge thing the deck likes to do. I don't feel extremely positive about this hand and the way it panned out. Any other 3-drop would have been better than that second copy of Clarabelle, but far from a disaster. We definitely have some play to it.
Perfect. All right, and now let's pivot a little and go into Amber Steel aggro on the play.
Okay. So we are super happy to see a Calhoun. The key cards we're looking for in the matchup are Hook, Calhoun, and we would really love to see 1 copy of Lewis. Again, our removal songs, the 3-cost songs, as long as we have 1, we're pretty good. You can make a case for keeping an Ursula against them, but it's certainly a little better on the play than on the draw because obviously you're not as on the back foot. And one of the things that the deck does really nicely is if you do happen to find a Lewis, you can kind of snipe their strength, which they're pretty happy to keep in a lot of their openers, and then develop your Lewis so that they can't just immediately... one of the easy way to counter Lewis is, okay, they play a Tiana, I Lewis it, they just sing strength using the Tiana on the Lewis. Cool, it's a pretty good way out of that trap. So the really questionable card is the Ursula. I'm locking 1 strength. I'm definitely keeping 1 strength. I'm definitely keeping Calhoun. I'm not too concerned about keeping hold of a dock. This is something where if I know I'm against Amber Steel, I really do want a 1-drop. With Calhoun as my 2, I'm pretty comfortable. And I'm happy sending Clarabelle and Ursula to make sure we find a nice chunky 3-drop. So it's a 5 send for me. I would just keep a strength and a Calhoun.
Gotcha. And yeah, to the importance of Calhoun versus Amber Steel, I played against a Amethyst Steel in Bologna, and his turn 2 was Calhoun, his turn 3 was Calhoun, and his turn 4 was 2 Calhouns, and I literally couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, how was that game for you? I don't imagine.
I don't think I got a lore.
Yeah. It's a pretty important card in the matchup. So if on the altar here we see a second copy, it's something that you might think, ooh, it's going to mess up your curve a bit having an uninkable like that. But I'm not angry. Now obviously we'll find all three of
Yeah.
the others.
All right,
But
let's see. I'm holding you to it. All right, so we don't, but yeah, very
brilliant. We're very happy with this.
yes.
This is going to give us a great shot at competing well in the game. Having Pete's is going to help prevent us from immediately having something relevant strength by them when they need to. We have we can just curve Hook into Calhoun, into a Pete, sing strength, immediately buy back the strength with Max, threaten to do it again the next turn, and Pete again. Hopefully by then we've found a shift target for the Clarabelle. If not, you're fine inking it in a matchup like that and just relying on getting some of your other alternative routes to draw, such as drawing a dock, going. So what we're missing there is a really clear route to the draw engine. But when you have this many tools to shut down the aggro deck, you're happy. You've got to be
I
happy with this, I think.
I would put this at like a 100% chance of beating any Ember Steel draw. To be honest, this hand is nuts.
Yeah.
This is like exactly what you want, and then just
Yep.
even getting like a strength back with the goof is nuts too. So yeah, this
Yeah,
is great.
when you play the same strength on turn 4 and turn 5, that's when you really start to like it clicks why you might want to play the deck.
Yeah. All right, let's move into a Amber Steel on the draw now.
Yes. Okay. So again, we're pretty happy with this. Here we have a lot of the tools that we
Yeah.
need. Again, that hook into Calhoun, into Genie as a sizable 3-drop. Yeah, I think it is a tough matchup on the draw,
Mm-hmm.
and they can run away with the game pretty easily. I think I'm keeping Hook, keeping Calhoun, keeping a Genie, keeping the strength. I'm happy to send all three of the others and hope to find a Lewis. Even with just these 4 cards, I feel pretty good about what's going on. But I think with these cards, there is a case for holding one of them as a predictable inkable. Obviously, we've talked about sort of inviting disaster into your life by over altering.
Yeah.
But here, these three, if I'm served terrible luck in the form of 3 uninkables, then I'll take my punishment. But I think this is where we stand to improve.
Perfect. All right, and let's see what we alter here.
Oh, okay. So yeah, risky. Yeah, it's not paid off immediately. Actually, this does make the hand a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
You're likely going to have to ink some cards you're not too happy with. On the
Right.
draw, you would hope that your first 3 turns, kind of naturally draw you 2 inkables.
Yep.
But the dock and second Calhoun does complicate things. As I said, you're definitely not mad about additional Calhouns in the matchup, but it's going to disrupt that really smooth curve out of 1, 2, 3, sing strength, rebuy strength, then start doing your draw antics. So yeah, it's not a disaster, but you are a bit more dependent on top decking inkables,
Right.
because if you wouldn't want to get into a situation where so the max, for example, is kind of like the cherry on top. That's the first one to go. If you had to ink the max and the genie, things have probably gone quite bad.
Yeah.
So um, you just hope that the top of the deck saves you from that. Yeah, a 3 uninkable hand is something you can get saved from, but it's not as smooth as it could have been.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm with you. I think we just want to not ink any of this really, and then just be inking every card off the top of our deck until turn 4.
Yeah, yeah. If you naturally inked a card from the top of your deck every turn, this hand would be phenomenal. You'll be
Yeah.
really happy with that. You just go Hook, Calhoun, GD, Sing Strength, and then that turn you either get to max and rebuy the strength, or you can have uh, just not care about the max and go Calhoun Dock with 4
Yeah.
ink, and that's a super fine line too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right. For the sake of time, now we're going to switch to on the draw only. So let's go to
Yep,
Blurple on the draw.
sure. Um, so Blurple can be one of the tougher matchups, and largely because you get pretty heavily disrupted by turn 4 Elsas.
Yeah.
A lot of your things don't line up too well into it, so we really our ability to disrupt that from happening is actually quite low versus Well, other decks don't really disrupt it, but we are disproportionately affected by it. The things that we can disrupt are just not what Blurple's doing.
Yeah.
So cards like Pete are far less relevant. What they do though is keep up on cards quite well. Not a lot of Blurple players would actively sort of dump their hand. And one of the big trade-offs to talk about with the deck, or one of the interesting interactions between cards, is the Clarabelle package and Dock in the same deck. When these cards start appearing in the same hands during alters, you have very difficult choices to make. So, if you're ever holding a big Clarabelle and a Dock at the same time, for example, you're thinking, right, well, these two cards aren't really doing their thing together. What am I doing? I'm either emptying my hand and drawing big with a Clarabelle, or I can't play my Dock while I'm holding this big thing and hoping to use it in the future. So, usually against Blurple, what I favour is these go wider. The only thing we can sort of do consistently more effectively than them is go wider, try to set up complex boards that are hard for a Chromacon to do much into, and really start to dock and make the most of our replay dock lines. If you're going first, you could set up a Clarabelle, you could sneak one through early, shift it in, and snowball that way. But here I'm looking to go wide, so I'm pretty happy with a curve out of one drop Clarabelle into a Calhoun. The three is really tough on the draw.
Yeah.
The 3 Clarabelle is tough there because if they TPO, we're never drawing with it. I think I'm sending back the 3-cost Clarabelle and a 1-cost Clarabelle, and I'm happy just curving the rest because they line up slightly better into these things, and Pete's going to give me a good chance of making sure I can at least get off a semi-decent strength. If I can strength for 4 on a Genie or something, then I'm very much in that game. Yeah, I'm not overjoyed by this. I'm basically not overjoyed to play against Blurple on the draw with this deck anyway. So, but I'm sending these two back and hoping for some improvement, and we're looking for something like a Shift Clarabelle or a Max so we can threaten that.
All right.
Okay, not the end of the world. And we found an extra Pete. It's not phenomenal in the matchup. And the Go-Go is really good late, but chances are we end up inking it early.
Yeah.
So this is, to me, it's a straight shot. Curve out 1, 2, 3 strength and look to dock after it. You could play a Go-Go on a dock on 4 ink turn. You're looking to go wider than them. The strength's hopefully going to buy you some board control. And you just cross your fingers and hope that the run out isn't Ramp, Genie, Elsa, Bell, which will end the game against you.
Right. For sure. All right, let's move into Amethyst Steel on the draw now.
Yep. This is an interesting hand. Ursula is a phenomenal card against Amethyst Steel because they are so... Strength or Raging Fire is such an important card for them that when they see it, they tend to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's maybe a little bit of levels of mind games. How confident are they in what I'm playing? If they know what I'm playing and they know that I'm likely to Ursula them, then maybe they get rid of it, and they've sort of leveled me a little bit there. But yeah, against most opponents, I'm super happy to be playing an Ursula on turn 2. And as I said, as long as we've developed a hook on turn 1, which we have here, that seems very good as well. Mother Knows Best is not going to achieve much for us in the early stages of the matchup, nor are Lewis's really. The deck has all of those things that I said were super good against Lewis, and yeah, all those things that aggro used to play that shuts the Lewis down, they're all very much present in the Purple Steel decks. And then with no 3-cost song, that we're less interested in the Max Goof. So this is, so as you look at this when you're keeping the dock, it's so the kind of hand where a second dock comes and looks really bad. So I think on the draw, knowing that I'm a card ahead and hopefully looking for some of my things like Pete's, I think at this point I will send a dock back, but I'm anyone that feels differently. I'm so open to either sides of the hold versus ditch dock debate. It's
I personally only like to keep dock when I'm not altering a lot, so I have less chance of drawing into 2, so I'm with you on altering this one.
Exactly, yeah, totally with you. I think it gets to a point where you see that you're sending 4 cards away and 4 more bites at the cherry. If you find 2 docks in those 4 cards, it's real bad. So it kind of has to go, and you rely on naturally finding the first one you need.
All right, and let's
go with
see
those 5.
What we alter.
Great. very happy with this. This gives us a lot more play. Again, we just open up with Hook, and we can have a little look with Ursula what we need to do. Genie is a fantastic, just general big, well-statted board presence. And then we can, as they start to develop more troublesome threats, we can look at bouncing something with Mother Knows Best as we need to buy a bit more time. And
Yep.
at the point we've done that, when we've returned something to their hand, that generally swings the card in hand number enough that you could get your extra draw with that Clarabelle and start just making sure that you're playing things that are going to redraw you some cards to take you deeper into your deck, to find your shift Clarabelles, to find your strengths, to find your maxes, docks, all these things that you need to play a nice grindy game against them. So yeah, definitely this has some play to it. Again, purple steel on the draw, it's not phenomenal, but there's enough here that you can definitely be present in this game and in with a decent chance of winning.
Perfect, yeah. And for our last one of the day, let's move into Emerald Sapphire on the draw.
Interesting. So, Emerald Sapphire is one of the reasons why the rise of Emerald Sapphire is one of the reasons why I put the deck together originally. Between Pete and between Ursula, you have some great ways to disrupt their song-based plan. Not a lot of them are in your hand right now.
Right.
Honestly, this is a send 6 for me. This keeps a Pete, and our plan to disrupt them with Ursula's, with Pete's, only works when we're ahead.
Right.
These cards do not keep us ahead. Chromicon can be okay against them in the late game, but it's not one of the matchups where it shines. They also play one cost Clarabelle, which is one of the only forms of reliable item destruction in the game. So you can get got by that against them. Makes me even want to hold the Chromicon even less. Yeah, it's a full send because against them we need to find that curve out and start disrupting them. We need to find something that's going to help us banish their Clarabelle shift targets early or bounce their. There's a case for holding the Mother Knows Best because we need to bounce their big Clarabelle when they shift it in early, and then we try to develop our own quickly behind it. I think with no 1 or 2, all 6 go back, and I am hoping for just something that's going to be a nice smooth curve out with ideally an Ursula. Oh, lovely.
Yes,
This
there
is
she
great.
is.
Yeah. So here we have the option to we can comfortably ink one Ursula because we might not even need 2 of them. We have our nice 1, 2, 3, and 2 Ursulas and a Pete should be enough to get some good things done versus blue green. Our Clarabelle, as we curve out faster than them, is almost certainly going to draw us a card.
Yep.
We can get rid of the go-go early. We can play it as an evasive quester on turn 2 if we want. We don't necessarily even have to play the Calhoun or Ursula early. Calhoun plus Ursula could be a very valid turn 4 against them when we know that they've sculpted their hand a little more and they're getting towards the point where they're going to be holding some of these things like Under the Sea, some of these more impactful cards. Get a better chance of sniping it the longer you hold off. And honestly, like a go-go can do a heavy amount of work against them just on turn 2 because they don't have a great number of ways to remove it. Yeah, I'm perfectly content with this hand. Again, the sort of running theme you'll see from a lot of the hands this deck sees is it's all generally pretty contingent on finding your Shift Clarabelle, finding your dock at the right time. The way you make that happen is by ensuring you have a smooth curve out and you are playing like 1 or 2 cards that are going to draw you something extra, help you start filtering through a little bit to just find those things that start your engine because all the maxes, all the Mother Knows Bests, all the Clarabelles, there comes a point in the game where they all have the ability to kind of start this draw engine for you. It's just a matter of getting there. It's making sure you've got a nice, smooth, consistent steel curve out that takes you to the point you want to be, where your engines can come online and you can start grinding people out.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, LD, thank you for stopping by Alter Academy today. Before we get out of here, is there any shout outs you want to make or anything you want to say before we close down?
Yes, I just really quickly want to say, if you haven't listened to the Artacast, you can find my podcast over on Artabax's YouTube channel. We do that every week. That's youtube.com/Artabax.
Link down in the description of this video if you want to check it out.
Perfect. And you may be skeptical about green steel now, and there are good reasons to be skeptical about green steel right now. But I'm telling you, get in on the ground floor of this deck because some evolution of this, and I'm hard at work in set 10, is going to be very, very real, and we are just around the corner, I believe, of a new Green Steel Dawn. So invest early, invest often. This is on the rise. You can keep this down on record if it flops completely.
Yeah.
But my belief is high right now.
Hey, you guys got a board clear now, and so I'm running 2 green steel because I love clearing the board.
Absolutely. Well, we're here for it then. Yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
All right, everybody. This has been Alter Academy. Tune in next week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Thank you.